Morning intuitives. Here on my day off. Sorry, I wanted to do a video yesterday, but it's pretty crazy 3 days. We had double tournaments at the country club every day, and they are a royal pain in the ass. You'd think they'd be easy for me after working multiple PGA Tour events, but I was a younger man then by a decade. So I wanted to get back into doing an INFJ video, and again, I'm gonna ask nicely and ask to please subscribe and help the channel grow, and like and share these videos to help others, and I'll admit it, help me feel like I have some purpose in helping people in the world, given that I am now a broke ex-firefighter who was cheated out of his job and struggling to find a sense of purpose and escape Chestertology. Oh, yes. And so, I wanted to get on the topic that came to mind, and I think I found a way to explain it. And that is INFJ envy. Everybody has envy for something. Like most things, INFJs are a little different in how they do it. And this probably applies to, ENFPs, ENFJs, INFPs, intuitive feelers in general, but I'm specifically talking from the perspective of an INFJ because, well, that's what I am. So that's what I know, and that's what I can at least express poorly because I'm not good at this. So, when most people think of envy, they think of people being envious of material things, money, fast cars, big houses, boats, or envious of things like fame and people wanting to be around certain people, perhaps because of their looks or perhaps because of how much money they have, or if they are a celebrity. And oftentimes people will be envious of people in those various categories without really factoring in who that person really is, because with anybody, not just celebrities, but they're the best example, most people's public image is different from like who they really are behind closed doors. I've worked with a few people over the years that you would think they were a good guy, but when the important people weren't looking, the exact opposite was the truth. Sadly, one example I'll give is back in the early 2000s when I was still in high school and playing travel team hockey. One of my hockey coaches, a guy named Rick, he was a teacher at one of the local Catholic high schools, deacon in the church, always doing charity. Really thought like he was just, while I didn't believe with his deep Catholic religious convictions, he seemed to be a genuine believer in like trying to help people, work for Habitat for Humanity, that kind of thing. Just seemed to be an all around genuine good guy. And then one day, people were discussing the NHL and discussing how there were more, black players entering the league. And he went on a racist rant about, you know, the game will change now that they have their foot on the ice. And I pretty much never asked him for advice or respected him after that, because that's old boys club shit as well as racism. Someone's a hockey player, it should be based on their ability to play the game of hockey. It shouldn't matter their race or sexuality or national origin, etc. And some other person shouldn't be given a shot that they didn't earn just because perhaps their older brother is in the league. Well, if big brother earned his spot, then little brother can earn his spot all on his own too. At least that's how I see it. But with INFJs, we do envy things. They are not materialistic, and they're a little bit different from the average person's envy. Like, for example, I'll use a common type of person people envy. A lot of people envy celebrities for their fame, for their fortune, for, just basically everybody wanting to be them, wanting to be around them, and that they can most of the time buy whatever they want and wouldn't really impact their abilities to pay the bills. For an INFJ, that is not really envious, because what we really value, things like integrity, unconditional love, honesty, trust can't be bought. Oftentimes, money makes those things harder to get or harder to maintain. So, something like that, the materialistic things wouldn't be what would make an INFJ envious of someone like a celebrity. However, there can be circumstances in which an INFJ could envy a celebrity, and I'll explain that. Like the way an INFJ would envy a celebrity. Say an INFJ has worked their whole life to get in a specific profession and did everything they were told, got the degrees, the certifications, and everything, but yet, they never get to get a shot in whatever that profession may be because they're not in the club. So an INFJ would envy a celebrity looking at them being like, well, let's just say an actor. It's like at one time you were an unknown. So somebody at some time, gave you a chance to prove yourself. And not that the said INFJ wants to be an actor. It's just the idea of, getting a fair chance to prove oneself in any competitive profession. That's what the INFJ would be envious of. Especially, I would say, INFJs born Generation X and younger, because we are the people that the boomers told any degree is a good degree and blah blah blah, and we went and did all that, and then when it's time to apply for the jobs, even if we have the right degree, they're like, well, you need a master's degree and all these obscure certifications and 3 years experience doing this exact job, but this is an entry level job. That kind of thing, with the goalposts moving, the idea of just playing by the rules and saying, like, say the actor who went to drama school and did their auditions and did all that they do, and then got that big role, got that chance to prove themselves and earn their stripes in the profession. The INFJ would be envious of that because it's like, well, wait a minute, like, what, like, when do I get my shot at my profession? It could be sales, could be firefighter, whatever that profession may be. It's the idea of somebody giving the INFJ a chance to prove themselves in whatever they're trying to prove themselves in, because it's very frustrating to us a lot of times. Like, we are very meritocratic people and don't like things like old boys clubs and nepotism and cronyism and all that shit that goes on way too much. Other things that INFJs are envious of is unconditional love, being able to find it, because as I said, it is a blue rose in the ruins of Atlantis these days, especially in today's hookup culture. So the idea, once again, because INFJs tend to be more reserved and don't open up all that easily, and INFJ men are still expected to make the first move, and we're just awful at it. It's awkward, it's scary, you know, small talk scary, small talk scary. So the idea of, once again, like, finding somebody you're interested in, and INFJs are pretty good at, knowing what they're looking for, and, usually not all that common of people, because like attract like kind of thing. And the idea of, like, somebody giving us the fair shot to get to know us, even if we, and almost certainly will not, make some, very memorable, suave first impression, because that's just not who we are. If you want, I already made a video about finding INFJ men. One more thing I want to add to that is, if you're interested in a guy that you think's an INFJ, understand that the biggest way we show affection is doing small little things for you all the time without being asked. If you're expecting, some guy to be full of confidence right off the bat and use some, like, suave hookup culture James Franco pickup line, we're not going to do that, because A, we don't know how, and most of us despise that kind of shit. So understand that in a relationship with an INFJ male, it's not going to be like hot and heavy right off the bat, because we have to get to know you, particularly if said INFJ male is a demisexual, which the majority of us are, but understand in that relationship, while it may take a month for the INFJ to really open up, 6 months down the road, we'll be even more in love with you because if we're still with you at that point, we know quite a bit about you. We're not the type of guy that, well, lose interest on to the next one. Let me carve that notch in there. So there is a bit of a trade-off there. But INFJs are envious of, people who are able to be themselves and how other people, want to get to know them just for being them. We have an ability to chameleon ourselves, but it's taxing and tiring, and it drains us. Although we can do it. And yeah, like an INFJ, for example. Not to get too deep in the whole chameleon thing, but it wouldn't be one of my videos without a sidebar. An INFJ would naturally change their behavior a little bit if they're like around a bunch of bikers as opposed to around a bunch of archaeologists in a museum. We don't do it consciously even, it just kind of happens. But our core of like who we are and values and all that doesn't change. It's more of like our manner of speaking and how we try to engage with people and relate to them, because blend in, blend in, blend in, stay out of the spotlight. But other things INFJs can be envious of is at times we can be envious of people who are confident enough to express themselves and be themselves. We're not the best at that usually, particularly in our younger years. We're often overcritical of ourselves, and a lot of us were targets for narcissistic abuse, so that adds on that lack of confidence, because in that instance, on top of knowing that we're different than most people, we were constantly reminded that we were different than most people, and, we don't care about conformity and cliques and all that, but at the same time, we're envious because we want people to like us for who we genuinely are, but we have a hard time, especially if it's people you don't know all that well, expressing that. Yeah, I know, kind of paradoxy, but walking paradox gonna paradox. So that is another thing that INFJs are envious of. Another big one is, and this kind of ties into the whole job thing, but I explained like the whole getting a fair shot and proving oneself. Having a purpose. An INFJ wants a career with a purpose. That can vary from INFJ to INFJ what that purpose is, but an INFJ is not the kind of person to get into any profession based on how much salary, how much money you're going to make. There will be some purpose to it, be it, if an INFJ wants to, help people and be willing to put themselves in the line of danger, they become a firefighter kind of thing. Yeah, just for example. Not that I know any INFJs like that. But that sense of purpose is so important to us, having us feel like we're making a small difference in the world, or we're at least a part of some kind of organization that can help people in some manner or form. Like being a firefighter at $60,000 a year is more appealing, I would say, to most INFJs than making 150 grand a year selling dangerous chemicals that shouldn't even be on the market anymore. Because again, it's about the sense of purpose. It's not about driving a Porsche and having a country club membership. Those are material things. And it's a difficult balance with INFJs because, on one hand, sometimes we think like, well, it would be easier to engage with people if I had those things, because more people would therefore engage with me and talk to me. But most of the time it's all the wrong people. Like, yes, I'm looking for unconditional love, but in my quest for unconditional love, I don't think the woman who would be my potential soulmate or twin flame would if it's a deal breaker for her if I drive a Volkswagen instead of a Porsche, then yeah, I don't think we're gonna work if that's how she thinks, kind of thing. So INFJs, in a nutshell, we don't we don't get envious over material things. We get envious over things like having a job that gives us a sense of purpose, being given a fair shot to try to obtain things that matter to us, like finding unconditional love, being able to help people, and just having been. We're very envious of people who have gotten a fair shot, like people who did the prerequisites to get a fair shot in whatever they were trying to get a fair shot in. And, we're envious of that because many of us, because INFJs are almost never in the old boys club, a lot of times don't get the, uh, the fair shots that on paper it says we've earned because being introverted, we're not going to be the kind of people that benefit off of networking and being, very meritocratic. We want to be given a fair shot based on our own merit, and we want other people to get their fair shot, but based on their merit, and not if they're in the club or who they're related to, kind of thing. So yes, as usual, INFJs are a little different in terms of dealing with a lot of things that pretty much everybody deals with. So that's how we deal with envy and how it differs from most other people. So remember, INFJs, use your intuition if and you're in a situation where you feel envious of someone, and use your intuition to figure out why that is. And, don't sell out your integrity for a network, a club, a sense of purpose, or whatever it may be.